Hi guys, I am going to try and, yes, we're running. Hi guys. I'm going to try and do this quickly because I'm still a bit woozy, tired, I don't know. I want to do the tag, get to know your witches, 15 questions about Wiccan, woo type, paranormal affairs. And I think my answers will be slightly different from a number of other people's that I've seen anyway. I'm also possibly a bit older, so there may be generation issues involved in there. And, fun, maybe. I hope. I hope you like what I'm doing here. Question number one. Does your sun sign and planetary signs correctly represent you? Now, since I've been studying astrology for the past 30 years, I think you will figure that my answer to that is yes. To the extent that I am each time shocked and sort of shell-shocked even to find that whenever there's been some huge upheaval in my life, normally it's because the moon is squaring or opposing my Mercury, which is what's been going on for the past year, for example. So, in that much detail, it correctly represents my life, which doesn't mean that I don't do anything with that, because on the contrary, it's like a work chart as far as I'm concerned. Being a Leo means this, that, and the other. It means, also wanting to shoulder responsibilities. For example, being an ascendant Libra, which is what I am, means not being able so well to stick out my neck for things because I always want things to be harmonious. Having a moon in Aries tends to mess that up completely. So it's work. It's an everyday long job, and there's amenities as well to the job. So that's more or less how I look at it. Question 2. Songs. The songs that give you magical vibes. So I was so pleased to see Brian Brian Cormac Carr, I should say, go into Kate Bush, because, yeah, of course, all my life I've been a huge fan of Kate Bush. There's what I thought was quite cool watching people's videos about this was that they brought music to my attention that I either didn't know or knew very little about, so I could look it up on YouTube or Google a few songs or something, and then sort of reacquaint myself with Fleetwood Mac. What was the other one? Florence and the Machine. Those types of utterly great kinds of music. I suppose for me personally, it will really depend on what it is that I'm doing, because magical vibes, I am not really a witch in the active sense, in the sense where I would concoct a ritual, or I see magical properties, or I see material properties of objects. I am acutely conscious and sensitive to vibrational properties of all sorts of things on all sorts of levels. So, but I don't often want to influence the patterns as they are. There are ways where, using light worker energies, I might influence somebody's life easily, for the better, for them. At least that's what my intention would be. But I don't do it ever. It's like there's a big, huge cross over that option for me, because, no go. Why am I going into this when I am going into the music? Because I was explaining what kind of a witch I am trying to be, okay? Because I am connected to all those areas, but not in an active manner. So magical vibes to me tends to be one of two things: either atmosphere wise, feel expanded, feel connected to the earth, feel connected to the cosmos, and generally feel connected to the seasons. I live in Holland, in the Netherlands, so we do have 4 seasons here: boom, 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 sort of like that. And well, a lot of my witchy-ish, I don't know, experience has to do with seasons. With I don't celebrate Esbats or Sabbats, but I look at them on the calendar. I look where the moon is at. I look at what's going on in the skies. I look at what's going on in nature, what plants are coming up, or what plants are bearing fruit. At this time of year, it's the 20th, 21st, whatever it is, of August at this moment, today. And what I noticed last night, we went to the forest for a bit of a walk, husband and I noticed quite a crop of red rowan berries. That's always this time of year. The red rowan berries stand out. It's like a huge signal of autumn is coming, and colder and darker times are coming and stuff like that. So there's this huge doorway opening to this darker time, and sort of not quite closing yet on the sunny days, which are still here, you know. So it depends. Music depends a great deal on what it is that I'm doing. For me, emotionally, I will put a link down in the description, definitely, to Sangho. I'm not even sure about the pronunciation of that. She's a Mongolian throat singer who's done extraordinary work. She is, as far as I've found, the witchiest, most pagan sounding, insane shaman witch that I can think of. And so actually my husband, who brought her back to my attention, because we talked about her a couple of days ago, and she's got a kind of a vibe. There is more music like that. I'm very fond of old style folk music. I love Japanese shakuhachi flute, bamboo flute music, for example, which is completely off the chisane, you know, compared to what we're used to. I suppose that's my witchy mode, really, other than Kate Bush and or Into the Trees by The Cure, which is a song that I almost instantly go to. It was at the top of my list. However, all this is magical vibes, but it's not really connected to my craft as such. My own personal approach to the craft from the point of view of music, it has always got to do with Tibetan bowls, Tibetan monks chanting, and binaurals, that type of thing, to get my awareness organized and to meditate. And that's a completely different story. There's, for example, a third eye binaural beat that sort of helps to awaken this area, which I've used quite a bit in the past few years. That I don't qualify as witchy necessarily, but it's crucial to what I do. So, 2 sides, okay? Question number 3. I will have to take off the glasses to read my own scribbles. Oh yeah, whether deity or ancestors or decks call you out, I am scared to bits of both deities, ancestors, and tarot in general, because they call me out 100% of the time. So there's possibly slightly less of a scare with the Saturabito Tarot, which is the reason why I use that deck quite a bit recently, because it's such a gentle deck. It's a lot easier to get along with, because I have been called out and I've been treated sarcastically, and you know, there were a lot of times, I mean by people, actual people in my life, and there were times where I couldn't deal with that. I couldn't cope with the way that people interacted with me. So sarcasm, ugh. However, what happens with tarot is I get Nine of Swords all the time. Not anymore, though. Not now. Not in the past year or so. But before that, it was like the Nine of Swords, places 1 to 7, and then everything else. So, talk about calling me out. Yeah, so maybe. Not most of it's not so funny, it's not entertaining, and it's not happy vibes, So nowadays, I think I'm pretty big girl to actually do tarot and not care so much about whether they're calling me out or not. I'm looking at it always from a perspective of what can I learn from this, and I am anyhow a sovereign human being, whether they like it or not. So, and I don't really do deity or ancestors, because I think that there's as far as ancestors go, there's been quite a bit of a learning curve, so to speak, going from my ancestors to myself, with me at the top, I'm afraid. And I don't say this because I think I'm a Leo and I can get away with anything, which is true, by the way, but because those people suffered such a huge deal, and many of them responded to their suffering by fragmenting. And so did I. So we were a bunch of sorry ass, fragmented, helpless, hopeless creatures. And nowadays, me sitting here talking to you about things and going about things in a bit more of an integrated and hopeful and possibly helpful way is already an achievement that I did. Thank you very much. Yes. So, I don't mind being called out so much on things whenever there's what I don't like is when there are people assuming that I have no sense of responsibility. There's the Leo again. So, okay, enough of that. The witchy mess up, number 4, question number 4. So there, since I don't really do ritual or in particular, well, I would tend to think of things as witchy when I make, for example, I make an amulet or a pendant in some type of material and put a symbol of a goddess or, mother goddess. That's the type of thing that I would make normally. And I would carve some symbols on that. And I don't think you can really mess that up. If your intentions are good, nothing's going to go wrong with that particular symbol or talisman, However, in my channel, you can find quite a number of descriptions, episodes about soul loss and soul retrieval. And I would say that a witchy mess up was losing my soul part. Oh yeah, that qualifies. Because on the other hand, it's what I've learned from the most. And it's what I'm actually here to try and present to you guys as much as possible, in between other subjects, is to talk about soul loss and what it can mean. And that when at whatever point of our lives that we feel consistently inadequate, in pain, alone, and misunderstood, and abandoned, yes, also, and generally empty. I suppose feeling empty is a really good qualifier. If that lasts for longer than an afternoon or a day, if that lasts for weeks or months, how about potentially there is soul loss involved? That's what I'm saying here. So, because then you can do something about that. There's regression videos on YouTube that you can use, and something is bound to happen because the parts belong together and they want to get back together. So in the end, it can sort itself out. However, that type of problem will not be solved in any other way than by getting those parts back together again. So, you see? So this may be slightly more serious. Like I said, different answers. It may be slightly more serious, or I have no idea. You tell me. Book writing is the next one. Question number 5. I have found that I am a lot less motivated to do any writing other than a bits of poetry here and there, which tends to be in Dutch for me because that works best. Also because I used to write in English and sometimes in French because I lived in France for quite a while. And I used to write whatever I liked in whatever language. And I decided at some point a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago or so, that I was going to write only in my native language because that meant meeting higher expectations as to truthfulness and exactness in expression. There's a big gap for me. In English, I can more or less... English is for this type of thing is perfect because I can get to anybody on the planet, really. And you can hear me talk if you want to, and then you see what I mean. You see my face also. You know what I'm on about, whether it's your kind of vibe or not. That's communicated sort of all over. So that makes it different. For poetry, every word has to be by itself, more or less, on the page. It has to work. And I use that for therapeutic reasons, really, to express sort of deep hidden layers of myself. I suppose it's really a part of my craft very much, only I don't do it very often. It's something that happens now and again, a couple of times a year or so these days. And I love what I make. I get the most interesting, funny, weirdy, spacey, trippy type of things. So, but no books. No more writing of books for me because I want to invest everything I've got in here. I've actually found this platform where I can, present to the world what I've got to say. And I get responses from people. I get answers and comments and things and likes and what have you. And I'm as happy as a duck in a bath. So, number 6. Oh yes, the 5 things you need to present to me to get me to come to your circle. That was a cool question. So, I've written a couple of things down. It says here, tea, preferably herbal, preferably your own harvest. Number 2, some type of divinatory tool I've never seen or heard of before. Number 3, some type of assurance that I'm free to go when I want. Yes. And that my vibes will only be used for good things. Thank you very much. 4, 100% natural resin incense or fragrance. That will also definitely do the trick, like myrrh oil or something like that. It's gonna yank me over to your place like no tomorrow. Number 5, a grapefruit. That also should really be pretty easy. Afterwards, and also watching other people's enumeration of their items that they wanted for for the circle event, I was thinking, okay, so perhaps you have to die first before they can summon you to their circle, which hadn't occurred to me at all. But I felt like, okay, you want to summon me now, then why not? Because consciousness is multiversal and huge and goes everywhere, so it can be over there now without me knowing, or without you knowing even. So, yowzer. That's what I found out. Consciousness is trippy by itself. So, anything. I don't think I need to reconsider this at this point. I wrote this down yesterday. I still agree with most of it. I would suppose that I would really like to know what I'm being summoned for and whether it's going to be any use, that type of thing. Because I tend to also be Dutch and practical minded, and I feel like I'm not wasting anybody's time here. So, that kind of thing. I hadn't seen that type of an internal tagging at the other people's sessions. The other people's answers to the questions was all about this item, crystals and colors and fairy wings and stuff like that. No, not for me. I'm not getting out of bed for, unless you got some interesting mushroom to communicate to me. Anyway, next question. Number 7. This was about the haunting. Yes. I wrote down, I intend to live forever. There you go. Or to transfer my awareness to a next body in complete knowledge of the things I've learned. Up to that time, straight away. At least as quickly as possible. If I were to be put on hold for 3 weeks, I'd like to haunt a rose garden at the end of August. Because, that would be like a real vacation for the inner self, to just hang around in a rose garden between all those glorious flowering blooms and just, hang there. And I wouldn't be interfering with people coming there. I'd just hopefully watch them enjoy it as much as I do. So there you go. Number 8, people who react funny to being witchy. The only bit that I've sort of got to add to this question is that I don't tell people I'm a witch because I'm not really a practicing Wiccan of any sort, and because I don't really do deities. And there are a couple of deities that I love and respect, quite a number of them actually, and I wouldn't even say, earlier today I thought I sometimes try to seek their company. I don't even do that. I think of them in a respectful and grateful way. That's it. That's as far as I go as with deities. What does happen is, like I said, I'm Dutch, I live in the Netherlands. People around me don't believe in anything. They're all old school, former Roman Catholics who are left with nothing really. And what I do is I talk about astrology, because that's the one link that we've got. Sometimes I meet somebody new or I work with somebody new, and I'm interested in getting their birth chart because I want to see the combination of this person's chart and that person's chart. And of course there's this blah on their black moon, and they go ballistic, which is what tends to happen. And all they do ever is they're scared. So that's not funny. That's not entertaining. I feel very sorry for them, but there's no way I have of explaining all this gorgeous material, all this beautiful knowledge that I've got to them in a way that will be of use to them. So we'll just have to make do among ourselves, I think. The other one. Oh yeah, superstitions. The only consistently recurring superstition that I have that is kind of like a question mark in my mind. I wasn't brought up with superstition in any way, so because Calvinistic Protestant teachers background, so very positivistic and science and all that, so very little superstition. The thing is that I get buzzing in my ears just like everybody else, I think. And I've learned, or somebody said to me ages ago, if it buzzes on the left side, they're talking bad about you. If it buzzes on the right side, they're talking good. And I'm wondering where that came from. Always. Whenever that happens, especially during the weekend, I will feel like, oh God, somebody's yakking about us. And depending on which side it's on, not that it helps or that it makes any difference, it's just that a thought that comes back, plump, plump, ever so predictably. Yes, I added a footnote to my answer to this question. I tend to look at animals showing up, wild animals. Wild birds, for example, tend to show up in significant moments, especially during our holiday. We had 2 moments where there was a raven, 2 different ravens, I think, showing up in 2 instances that were kind of quite significant for both of us. So that was cool. That's something I tend to notice. And I will also try always to find energy explanations for weird things happening. And often I can because experience, I think. And I know always there's more going on than meets the eye. There's a whole multiverse out there. So that's okay. That's cool because so far I'm alive. So thank you. Question number 10. I can't read this with glasses on. Fantasy, magic, power. Quite a lot of extraordinary weirdness has already come my way. Oh yeah. Also, sensing things and connecting with energies and things that have completely blown my own mind several times over, where I felt like, help me, I am lost here. Flying on a broomstick would be nice. Or on a magic carpet. You're supposed to think of a magical fantasy power that you'd like to have. I'd be scared to bits flying on a broomstick. Shut up. No problem. No, no idea. Oh yeah, miscellaneous item on your altar, or random item on your altar. So I have a counter in the middle of my house here, and the sacred space is on this end and the profane space is on this end. So it sort of tends to water down slowly, going outwards. And on this end, there's also statuettes and candles and a couple of important stones and bits and bobs. And then in the middle, sometimes I have flowers and more candles. And then you get coffee mugs and lemons and keys and another rock and stuff that gets used, you know? Random general. The lemon that I showed you in the previous big video, this big lemon, is on there as well for some reason. So I guess the most random weird item, I've already shown this a few times I think earlier videos, is a really crazy mushroom. Let me get this for you because it would be a pity not to show it. This is the mushroom. Nobody's going to believe this. This is an actual genuine mushroom that I picked. Luckily I did pick it 2 years ago, next October, I think, from a whole big bushel of them. I don't know the name of the mushroom in English or in Latin. It's completely dry now and it's still sort of hanging together. And I picked this one because up to here, it's the normal mushroom. See? It's got a stem and a hat, like that, a cap, or maybe that's what you call it. Only in this whole big bushel, the previous year, so that will have been 2016, I had spotted it as well. It was like a malformation where out of the cap of the mushroom grew another little upside down version of the same mushroom. And in here you can see a circle, that's the cap of the other one, and in the middle is where the stem used to be. There used to be a stem, but that's just sort of disintegrated away and fallen off. So talking about weird, random, that's what I'm saying. There's a lot more going on than meets the eye. Unlucky for me, they've cut down the tree and extracted all the mushroom bits, and I don't think I'll be seeing any of that ever again really soon. At the time this fellow was growing, my husband was having his stomach operation in early October 2017, and I went over there every day to take a photograph of how he was growing. So I've got a whole series of photographs on my computer of at first little blob starting, you know, and then the blob growing and becoming more of a cap, and, you know, still baby cap and so on, and then everything growing out like that, and then this top bit also growing up, and the stem in the middle sticking out like a little, you know, dinky dinky thingy, and the whole thing growing. In the end, they were as big as each other, the top and the bottom one. So random altar business. What does it say for number 12? YouTube wishes granting. Oh, yes. I had done a lot of thinking about that one because I've got a couple of channels that I'm subscribed to that I really am fond of watching. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't, right? I've also subscribed to a couple of new channels as a consequence of this tag. But the granting of wishes, I've never had that much to wish for in my life. And by the time I get around to having a wish, I make sure more or less that if it's an actual wish, then I'm sort of making sure that I can actually manage this myself. But thinking of the YouTube community and the way I go about things and the way people tend to go about things, there's one element that I keep noticing is that many great YouTubers tend to stick to their trade. They've got this setup for their channel, they've got these approaches that they want to use, these types of episodes that they want to make, and they don't go outside that. Whereas for me, I enjoy hugely, doing all sorts of little nature vlogs, culture bits and pieces, filming a recipe, what have you. I'll stick it all in. And I would love for more YouTubers to go off center a bit more, if they feel like it, and in whatever way they do feel like it. So, because you've got so much humanness to share other than, what it is that you are necessarily doing now. So don't be too painstaking, just go ahead and film something silly or something entertaining, or if there's dandelions outside your house that you love and you enjoy every day, give us a 15-second shot of that. Why not? Because everything fertilizes everything the whole time. That's what I think. So that would actually be my sincere wish for people, to expand a bit, go off center slightly whenever that feels comfortable, or maybe whenever it doesn't feel comfortable, and then you do it anyway and you find out that you're actually enjoying it, something like that. Oh yeah, being an instant expert, that's the next question, number 13. Oh no, I don't want to be an instant expert on anything. If anything has been shown in my tarot spreads recently, in the past 6-8 months or so, is that I am an 8 of Pentacles girl. So I have to be constantly refining and distilling and adding on bits and stuff, and that's just an intense process for me, learning about anything. And it has to be about the craft, and what I wrote down in the end wasn't really about the craft, in the sense that it would be used for the craft. Definitely, I would like to learn a couple more languages, just like Kellyanne said. Yay for Kellyanne. Languages. I would like to learn Hebrew instantly. Oh yeah, Hungarian. That would be so cool, because plowing through grammar and, other types of different writing, I have no more patience for nowadays. And so, but Hebrew was the first thing that fell into my head. So, pretty cool. Instant expert on Hebrew. Oh, yeah. Number 14, when I die, I hurry off to the next job, minting awareness. Ego, I think. Anyway, when I die, what happens when I die? When the body dies, I suppose I have read a bit of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, etc. So I suppose there's a process where it takes quite some time for one type of awareness to be sort of translated back into the original self, which may or may not be linked to the higher self. And the soul is beyond even that, in my experience. So I think I will be very motivated to continue on this path anyway. So I still, like I said, I intend to live forever. So as long as, as long as this lasts, all this. And if it doesn't, I'll have to figure out a way to roll everything in together and position myself over in the ethereal plane, something along those lines. The next 5 years, my spirituality in the next 5 years, the last question, will be spent communicating with people and enjoying contacts with people all over. Coming back to my themes of Shakti work and soul and incarnation work, etc. Potentially speaking from a place of courage and determination, yes. And integration. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to show everything that has to do with my processes, that you might just as well see from a mental health perspective, and that I want to show people that you can have courage and that you can have determination and you can forge on building your life as long as you follow your guts and make the best of the tools that you have and try to accumulate more tools, try to strive for mastery. There's always, you don't have to, everything that you used to think of as negative in yourself can be turned around. That's what my firm belief is, that there's a function, that there's a reason even why we have all these huge problems, is because at some point you will manage to turn the wheel around and you will find out that actually you are gifted, and there's only to translate the problem into the gift is a job, and it takes, effort and willpower and love and focus and all those things. So I have 2 people that I would like to tag, other than just anybody who is brave enough to watch me rant on these things. Jennifer, at Jennifer Pearson. I would love to hear your answers to these questions. I'd be so curious. And Lisa at Supportive Tarot, because both of you have been really important to me in the past 6 months or so, interacting with me, and that I've had a chance to interact with you on your channels. And I would love to know what your answer is going to be. And if you're outside your comfort zone, even better. So, blessings to you. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. And see you again very soon. Bye-bye.